Rejected and forgotten, I returned after 12 years and shocked my parents. Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved ones. Your support means the world to us. Now to our story. MPO. At 17, I was kicked out of the only home I had ever known. My parents didn't ask questions. They didn't give me a chance to explain. My sister cried fake tears and accused me of stealing from her, and they believed every word. They packed my things into a black trash bag and told me to leave. No hug, no goodbye, no support. Just silence and slammed doors. I spent that first night in a bus station, scared, cold, and completely alone. I had no money, no friends I could call, and no plan. I found a job washing dishes under the table and slept in the back room of the restaurant. I worked every shift I could, saving every dollar. When the restaurant closed, I found another job, then another. I kept moving forward. Eventually, I started learning how to code using free public library computers. I taught myself every night after work. After 2 years, I landed a small freelance project, then another. One client recommended me to another, and slowly, I started building something real. By the time I was 25, I had started my own company. It wasn't easy. I failed more than once. I got betrayed, scammed, ignored, but I never forgot the night I was thrown out with a trash bag and nothing else. That memory kept me going. I swore that one day, I'd walk back through that door, not as a broken kid, but as someone they could never ignore again. 12 years passed. I was successful, wealthy, respected. One day, I decided it was time. I drove to my childhood home, not in a beat-up car, but in a sleek black SUV. I stood on the same porch where they had once slammed the door in my face. When my mother opened the door, her eyes widened. My father stepped forward, confused, then shocked. My sister stood behind them, frozen. For a long moment, no one said a word. I could see it all on their faces, the confusion, the guilt, the disbelief. "Remember me?" I asked. "The one you threw away?" They didn't know what to say. I didn't need them to. I had already said everything I needed, just by standing there, successful, unshaken, and in full control of my life. I didn't come back for revenge. I came back to show them that their rejection didn't break me. It built me. It started with a missing necklace, something small, shiny, and expensive. My sister had a way of making everything dramatic, and this was no different. She screamed, cried, and accused me without hesitation. "It was you," she said. "You're the only one who could have taken it." And just like that, the lie took root. My parents didn't even ask me if it was true. They didn't search my room, didn't question her version. They looked at me like I was already guilty. I was 17, scared, and confused. I kept saying I didn't do it, that I'd never steal from them, but it didn't matter. The trust was already broken, not by my actions, but by her words. I tried to explain, tried to beg them to believe me, but they had made up their minds. "We raised you better than this," my mother said, and my father just shook his head in disappointment. They packed my clothes into the same trash bag used for old laundry and told me to go. My heart shattered. I didn't even understand what I was being punished for, only that no one believed me. I left with nothing, no plan, no help, no hope. For years, I lived with that label in my mind: thief, liar, disgrace. But I never gave up. I worked odd jobs, learned new skills, and built my own life from the ground. Every time I wanted to quit, I thought of the day they cast me out. That pain fueled me more than anything else ever could. Then one day, the truth found me. An old friend from the neighborhood reached out. She told me she overheard my sister years ago, bragging about how she'd stolen the necklace herself and blamed me to get attention. She even sold it online to buy herself a designer bag. My hands shook as I read the message. After all this time, the truth had finally surfaced. I didn't feel joy. I felt rage, not just at my sister, but at the people who were supposed to protect me, love me, and believe in me. I didn't rush to confront them. I didn't storm back demanding apologies. I waited, watched, planned. Then I returned, not as the broken teen they cast out, but as a successful, self-made man who had built something real. When they saw me again, they were stunned. But nothing could prepare them for what I had to say, or how I calmly exposed the truth they had ignored for so long. The lie had shattered everything once. Now the truth would do the same. The air was cold that night. Not just the kind of cold that chills your skin, but the kind that seeps into your bones. I sat behind a gas station, knees tucked to my chest, clutching a trash bag that held everything I owned. My stomach growled and my throat was dry. I hadn't eaten since morning, and my phone had died hours earlier. But even if it worked, I had no one to call. I had been erased, cut out of my family like I was a mistake they wanted to forget. They didn't even yell. That would have at least meant emotion. My father just tossed the bag at me and said, "Leave." My mother wouldn't even look at me. My sister stood behind them, smirking. I didn't understand how it had come to this, But I understood one thing clearly. I was on my own. I walked for hours until I found the gas station. I curled up behind the dumpster where the cameras wouldn't catch me. I was scared, hungry, and angry. Angry that I didn't even get a chance to explain, angry that no one fought for me, and angry at myself for not seeing it coming. That night, under a flickering streetlight, I stared at the sky and made a promise. I will come back. And when I do, they will regret ever forgetting me. From that night on, survival became my mission. I begged for food outside fast food joints. Some people gave me fries or a half-eaten sandwich. Others looked at me like I was invisible. I worked odd jobs, cleaning alleys, scrubbing floors, hauling boxes. I slept in shelters, sometimes in stairwells. I learned how to stretch $5 for a week and how to defend myself when things got rough. One day, I saw a flyer for a free coding workshop at a local community center. I signed up, not expecting much, but something about it clicked. It gave me a sense of control again, a way to build something. I spent every free moment practicing on donated computers, watching tutorials, doing little gigs for small pay. I didn't realize it then, but that was the beginning of my rise. I had nothing, no safety net, no support, but I had determination. That night behind the gas station became my origin story, not one of defeat, but of fire. It lit something in me that no lie, no betrayal, no silence could ever extinguish. And one day, I knew I'd return, not homeless, not hungry, and no longer hated, but remembered, respected, unstoppable. I started with nothing, just a trash bag of clothes, an empty stomach, and a heart full of pain. After that first night on the streets, I found work at a small diner. It wasn't much, but they paid in cash, and that was enough. I washed dishes until my fingers cracked from the heat and soap. I slept in a storage closet with a blanket someone had thrown away. Every day, I showed up early and stayed late. I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I worked. I saved. I watched. I listened. One night, a customer left behind a newspaper with an ad for free computer classes. I didn't know anything about coding, but something inside me said to try. I showed up to that class with worn-out shoes and no clue what I was doing. But I paid attention. I asked questions. I stayed after everyone else left, just to practice a little longer. I used library computers for hours, building small projects and fixing broken code for free just to learn. Months passed, then years. I got better. I started freelancing online, small gigs at first, then bigger ones. I built websites for local shops, then apps for startups. The more I learned, the more I realized what I could do. I registered my own business. Just me, my laptop, and the hunger to prove everyone wrong. I didn't sleep much those days. I worked while others rested, studied while others partied. I wasn't chasing money. I was chasing freedom, freedom from the shame, the silence, the memory of being thrown away. My company grew. I hired a small team. We launched our first app, and it went viral. Investors started calling. Suddenly, I was in meetings with people who wore $1,000 suits. I signed deals, shook hands, and traveled to cities I had only ever seen in magazines. I still remembered the alleyways, the stairs, the people who crossed the street to avoid me when I was homeless. I remembered my parents' faces, cold, distant, full of disappointment. Every win I had built became another layer of armor, a wall between me and the past. Not to keep me locked away, but to keep their judgment out. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need their apology. I needed to become something so strong that their rejection couldn't reach me anymore. And I did. I rose from the dirt. I built my own world, all without them. Years had passed since they cast me out like I was nothing. I had stopped thinking about them long ago. At least, that's what I told myself. Then one morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. The message was short and cold. My father was sick, the family business was falling apart, and they needed help. At first I laughed. The same people who treated me like dirt now wanted my help? The irony stung more than it satisfied. But something inside me shifted, not out of pity but power. This was the moment I'd been unknowingly preparing for. I agreed to meet. When I walked into the office, the room fell silent. My mother looked like she had seen a ghost. My sister wouldn't even make eye contact. My father, thinner and grayer than I remembered, stared at me like he was unsure I was real. The company was a mess, bad investments, poor leadership, lawsuits piling up. And through it all, no one in the family had the skills or experience to fix it. But I did. I had built something from nothing, proven myself over and over again. They needed me more than I needed them, so I gave them terms. I didn't want apologies or tears. I wanted control, full legal authority to make decisions, access to all financial records, and one final condition, a rewritten will. They blinked in confusion. My father asked why that mattered. I looked him in the eye and said, "Because I wanted in writing that I was never the failure you believed I was." I told them if I saved the company, I would not be pushed aside again. No hidden promises. No quiet betrayals. My name would go at the top, in ink, next to everything I helped rebuild. At first, they hesitated. Pride still lingered in the room like old perfume. But desperation outweighs pride. They signed. I worked day and night, cleaned up bad deals, replaced lazy managers, launched a new product line. Slowly, the numbers turned green. The business found its feet again. People started whispering about the miracle turnaround, never knowing the miracle was the same kid they threw away years ago. Eventually, the lawyers finalized the new will. My name was there, bold and clear. I didn't need the money. I needed the truth documented. I wasn't the black sheep. I was the backbone they never saw coming. I came back not to beg, but to lead. And this time I wrote the ending. I never imagined I'd stand in front of them again. Not after what they did. But here I was, not as a broken kid needing answers, but as a grown man with nothing to prove. I didn't come for forgiveness or revenge. I came for one question. They sat across the table, my mother, my father, and my sister. It was the first time we'd all been in the same room in over a decade. They looked older, tired, weighed down by years of silence and secrets. I, on the other hand, felt sharper than ever. I had built myself back from nothing. That strength kept me calm. I looked at them, my voice steady. Do you even remember why you chose her over me? They didn't answer. My father blinked. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. My sister looked down, avoiding my eyes. The silence told me everything. They didn't remember. Not the details. Not the reason. Just the feeling. The belief that I was the problem. That I had done something terrible. But they couldn't name it, couldn't explain it. Because it was never real. You believed a story she told, I said, nodding at my sister. You didn't ask questions. You didn't look for truth. You just acted. Still, no one spoke. I lived on the streets. I went hungry. I almost didn't make it out, I continued. And all because you chose a lie over your own son. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I didn't need to. My words hit harder than any scream ever could. My mother whispered, "We thought we were doing the right thing." "No," I replied. "You did what was easy. You found someone to blame, and you walked away. But now, sitting here, you can't even tell me what I did." The shame on their faces wasn't satisfying. It was sad. They had lived with their choice so long, they forgot why they made it. They just accepted it as truth. And now, faced with me, the man I became, they couldn't even defend their decision. That was the closure I never knew I needed. Not an apology, not regret, just the silence, the realization that they'd built their hate on a foundation made of nothing. I stood up, looked at each of them one last time. "I didn't come here for your guilt," I said. "I came to remind you of what you threw away." And then I left, finally free, finally done. After I was kicked out, my sister got everything I left behind. She moved into my room, drove my car, and even took my spot at the college I was meant to attend. While I struggled to survive, she lived in comfort, playing the innocent daughter who saved the family from a liar. For years, I stayed quiet. I focused on building my life, not looking back. But I never forgot how quickly she threw me under the bus, just to shine a little brighter. Every success I earned came from pain, while hers came from stepping on others. Then came the day everything changed. I was invited to speak at a business conference in our hometown. My company had just closed a major deal, and the organizers wanted me as the keynote speaker. It wasn't revenge I wanted. I didn't even know she'd be there. But fate works in strange ways. She showed up halfway through my speech. I saw her in the crowd, arms crossed, jaw tight. As I wrapped up and opened the floor for questions, she stood and smiled. With a voice full of fake sweetness, she said, "Isn't it funny how people can pretend to be successful when we know who they really are?" There was a murmur in the crowd. Cameras were rolling. She thought she had me cornered. But what she didn't know was that the truth was already on my side. I smiled back. "It's interesting you say that. Especially since the lie you told 12 years ago ruined someone's life. Should we talk about the necklace?" Her face froze. "Because I remember someone bragging about selling it to buy a designer bag. I even have someone willing to swear to it." Gasps filled the room. She turned pale. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I just let the truth sit there, plain and sharp. Reporters approached me after the event. The story spread quickly, how a successful entrepreneur had been falsely blamed and cast out by his own family. My inbox filled with support. People praised how I handled it with class. Meanwhile, my sister disappeared from social media and lost her internship weeks later. I didn't need to ruin her. She did it herself, just like she did the first time, trying to climb higher by tearing someone down. But this time, it didn't work. Watching her fall wasn't about revenge. It was a reminder that lies eventually break the liar. The message came on a quiet evening. I was reviewing contracts, sipping tea, and enjoying the peace I had earned through years of hard work. My phone buzzed with a number I hadn't saved, because I had no reason to. It was my mother. Her voice trembled in the voicemail. My father was in the hospital. Surgery. Expensive. Insurance wouldn't cover everything. They didn't know who else to turn to. At first, I felt nothing, just silence. The kind that echoes. This was the same woman who once watched me pack my things into a trash bag and leave, without even asking if I was okay. Now, years later, she remembered me, not to apologize, not to reconnect, but to beg for help. I had the money. That wasn't the issue. I could have paid the full amount and never noticed it missing. But it wasn't about money. It was about something deeper, about finally turning the tables. For so long, I had carried their rejection like a wound. Their silence, their cold eyes, their refusal to believe me. All of it. I had built a life from that pain. Now they were the ones desperate, scared, and unsure who to turn to. So I replied with a message of my own. I'm sorry to hear about Dad. I hope he recovers well. But I won't be helping financially. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. It wasn't cruel. It was honest. There was no anger in my voice. Just boundaries, something I had never been allowed to have back then. I didn't block them. I didn't argue. I simply stepped back and let them feel the weight of what they once did to me. A few days later, my sister sent a text. How can you be so heartless? He's still your father. I stared at the screen, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like a bad son. I felt like a man who had learned to value himself. I replied, he was my father when I needed him too. He chose silence. That was the end of it. I don't know if they found the money elsewhere. I didn't follow up. I had carried their burden long enough. It wasn't about revenge. It was about letting them sit with the very feeling they handed me so easily all those years ago. This time, they were the ones left behind. This time I said no, and it felt like healing. 12 years is a long time to carry pain. Long enough for anger to settle into silence, for wounds to become scars. But even after all the success, all the growth, the day came when I stood at a crossroads. Do I forgive them, or do I let them feel the same emptiness they gave me? They reached out after so many years. Not with an apology, not even an explanation, just a request. They needed help. Life had caught up to them. The same people who turned their backs on me were now asking for support, as if time alone erased everything. At first, I felt nothing but rage. Not the loud kind, but the deep, quiet fury that had built itself into my bone. I remembered the cold goodbye, the trash bag at my feet, the nights I went hungry. They hadn't just abandoned me, they chose to believe a lie, and they never looked back. But then came another feeling, a softer one. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the question of it. Had I become the very thing they feared? Had all this strength turned into something sharp and bitter? I sat alone for hours, replaying the past, imagining different outcomes. What if they had listened? What if they had just asked me, believed me, protected me? That version of my life didn't exist. Only this one did. And now I had power. The power to help, or the power to walk away. Redemption or revenge. If I helped them, it wouldn't erase what they did. But maybe it would free me from carrying it. Maybe the strongest move wasn't vengeance, it was rising above it. But another voice in me whispered, they didn't show you mercy. Why give them what they never gave you? In the end, I made a choice. I helped, but not with money, not directly. I arranged the support they needed through someone else, quietly, with no contact. They never even knew it came from me. I made sure the need was met, but I left them with the silence they had once given me. It wasn't about being noble. It wasn't about being cruel. It was about peace. They got what they needed. I kept my distance. Sometimes I still wonder, did I make the right call? Could I have done more? Or less? That choice still lingers in the quiet moments. But I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. To let go just enough to move on. 12 years ago, I walked away from my home with nothing but a trash bag and a broken heart. I was nameless, shamed, forgotten. To them, I was a mistake they wanted to erase. No one asked me what really happened. No one gave me a chance. They turned their backs, slammed the door, and moved on. But I didn't disappear. I built something from the ground up. Quietly, patiently. I worked jobs no one wanted, studied skills no one believed I'd learn, and kept my head down. While they forgot me, I was writing a new story, one where I didn't need their approval, one where I rose higher than they could ever imagine. Now, I drive through that same neighborhood in a car they can't afford, dressed in clothes they only see in magazines. People whisper when I pass, "Is that him? Didn't he? Wasn't he the one they threw out?" The story changed. The boy they threw away came back not as a memory, but as someone they couldn't ignore. My name is in papers, on screens, in rooms they'll never be invited to. The same people who once judged me now envy me. Their silence became a spotlight, and that spotlight shines on everything they tried to bury. When I returned to the neighborhood, I didn't knock on their door. I didn't need to. They knew I was there. The whispers reached them long before I did. I saw them peek through curtains, faces pale, unsure of what I'd say, what I'd do. But I didn't need to say a word. My success spoke louder than any revenge ever could. I visited old places, The park I used to sit in when I had nowhere else to go, the bus stop where I slept one night in the rain. I stood there looking around, realizing how far I had come. I wasn't the same person anymore. I had outgrown the pain, the shame, the silence. They made me a ghost. I became something more. Not just remembered, respected, feared. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because I refused to stay small. Because I turned every scar into a stepping stone. Because I chose to rise. I didn't return for revenge. I came back to claim everything they thought I'd never have. My name, my story, my worth, full circle, from forgotten to unforgettable.